Hey everybody, how you guys doing?
Hi. Doing good.
Hi,
How are you,
Taylor.
Taylor?
I'm good. Happy Whiskey Wednesday.
It is. It's
Wednesday.
Whiskey Wednesday.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know
That
about
means
you
we
guys,
get
but
we
the
get to drink
aroma
whiskey,
in
which we
front of
don't
me
normally
is
do,
so
right?
yes. No, we don't normally do that. The
No.
aroma in front of me is so delicious. I'm really excited about what we're gonna do tonight.
Yeah. This is gonna be great. Welcome to all our whiskey family as well. Hopefully across the globe, maybe just in America. Who knows? But welcome everyone.
Wow.
Tonight we are gonna host an Uncle Nearest tasting. We've been on Whiskey Wednesday. We've been featuring all kinds of different whiskeys from around America and around the world.
Right.
So we thought it was about time we hosted a tasting of our three own beautiful whiskeys. It was about
Yeah.
time, right?
Yes.
Yes, it is.
Been waiting for this episode.
So, so before we get started, I just have to do a quick fashion show for everyone. What
All right,
does
let me
everyone
get
think
a
of my
close up.
new mask that I got here? Here, I'll come around. Oh, there we go. There we go. What does everyone think of my new beautiful Uncle
I
Nearest
love it. And
Very
what
good.
what
mask?
does it say on the
Yeah.
side there?
Oh, let me come around. I'll show y'all.
Other side.
There we go.
Uncle Nearest.
Love
Love it.
it.
There
Love
we go.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Awesome.
They're nice and comfy too.
They are. They're beautiful. And we have to give a huge shout out to all our employees at Nearest Green Distillery who have been distributing the N95 and Uncle Nearest masks. And we have managed to distribute 250,000 masks
Wow.
to people on the front lines who are in desperate need and cannot get a hold of those masks. So go team. You did an amazing
Yeah.
job.
Great job.
We are so proud of you, and so is everybody in the whiskey world. It's wild how many thank yous and messages and emails we've been getting, not just from people on the front lines who are so thankful that we were able to do that for them, but from other distilleries too.
Yes.
We have been getting a lot of messages from our whiskey distillery friends letting us know how amazing of a job the employees at Nearest Green Distillery have been doing. So proud of you guys. Thank you so much.
Yes. Thanks, team.
Go team. Go team. Okay, so is everyone ready to get going for the tasting?
Oh, I'm so ready.
thirsty.
I got all my stuff in front of me. I don't normally eat jelly beans because I don't like stuff stuck in my teeth. But for you, Richie, I went out and got the dang jelly beans.
I did
It
too.
smells
Oh.
really weird. I have my saltine crackers here. Jesse has
Beautiful.
2 different kinds. I have my little
Amazing.
water vial, so I can.
Prepared.
Yep.
So
And then I have a
so
glass of water.
beautiful. So for all our guests who are watching, let me talk you through what we have going. And if you were able to pick these items up, that is amazing. You can taste along with us. But if you just have whiskey, no big deal. You'll also get a lot out of this just by sipping some whiskey with us. So what I have in front of me, I'll go from the front. In the first cup, I have some jelly beans. In the second cup, I have some crackers. And in the third cup here, I have some distilled water and a little pipette that I use for dropping the water into the whiskey. Then I have Uncle Nearest tasting map that you can download online. And Sailor, I'm not sure if it's possible. Can we post the link for folks?
I can
just in case?
absolutely, yes, I can post the link right now. That's easy to do. Give me
Okay,
one moment.
great. So if you don't have the tasting map yet, then it's still possible to download and print that. And it's something that you can keep and share your tasting experience with people. And then I have my 3 whiskeys that are in Glen can glasses. So you can really use any type of glass. But what
Can
is
we talk
most
about that,
effective?
Richie, for a minute?
Yeah, absolutely. So what is most effective is to use these Glencairn glasses. These are kind of industry standard glassware for tasting whiskey. And what it does is that whiskey is very volatile at room temperature. And what that means is it's giving off a lot of vapor. So if you think about this whiskey, it's just a glass of molecules that are in liquid form at room temperature. And that liquid form is volatile, so it's giving off a lot of molecules that are floating up off of the body of the liquid. And so what this glass does is it actually funnels those volatile molecules up into a space that is a perfect size for smelling. So these glasses are kind of industry standard of what we use to taste our whiskey with. But you really can use anything. You can use a rocks glass or any glass that you have available. You're still going to get an experience out of it.
So I have rocks glasses tonight because I feel a little differently about the Glencairn glass, and this is what I love about whiskey. That preference is really important, and there's really no right and no wrong way. For me, I have a very sensitive nose, very sensitive. I mean, if someone has stood next to someone who stood next to someone that had a cigarette 2 days ago, I can smell it on them. Okay. It's a curse, which gives me a sensitive palate as well. So for me, anything over an 80 proof is difficult in a Glencairn for me. So when it's high proof whiskey, I choose something that has an open mouth. Because sometimes I just feel like I'm getting the ethanol from that Glencairn because it's pushing the ethanol up. So, and it depends too on the whiskey. So I kind of always try to have a couple different glasses in front of me. That's just me.
I have a rocks glass tonight. I have
Absolutely.
Uncle Nearest glass too.
Ooh,
oh, that's
yes.
cute. I love it.
Mine is branded as well. And Kate is reminding us that we have all kinds of glasses on our website. We have our own branded Glencairn glass too.
We do, yes.
Yeah.
And they're beautiful. And they come in, you can buy them single or you can get them in sets of 4 as well. So yeah, beautiful. And then obviously our 3 whiskeys here, we're tasting the 1884, the 1856, and the 1820. And you'll notice that we have them lined up in this specific way, because whenever you do a whiskey tasting, you want to taste from the lowest proof to the highest proof. And there's a reason for that. So alcohol or ethanol is actually naturally toxic to the body. So when you are drinking ethanol or alcohol, you want to start off and by warming up your palate by drinking the lowest proof or the lowest alcohol percentage first, and then moving up in percentage. So that's why we move from our 93 proof 1884 to our 100 proof 1856, and then finally to our 1820. And the one that I'm drinking today is 110.1 proof.
I have 113.2 on my 1820.
I don't have a bottle, guys. I don't have a bottle.
Oh.
Well, you know what? For all of our whiskey family out there, that just shows you how hard these bottles are to get hold
Exactly.
of. We'll talk about that later.
Yeah, it's not like they're just hanging out. This is my only
Chicago ambassador can get.
I don't even have a bottle.
This is my only bottle. And look, I poured a second dram. I was like, do I really want to pour this tonight?
Yes, this is some of the most beautiful, hard to get whiskey on the planet right now. So yeah, not even our Chicago ambassador can get a bottle. So folks, what I want to do first, and you're going to have to bear with me for a second because it's going to be a few minutes until we actually start tasting whiskey. And the reason being is because one of the most important things about tasting whiskey is understanding what is happening when we taste, the actual biology about what is going on when we're tasting. And once you understand the biology and what's happening, it really makes you understand and appreciate how to taste whiskey so much more. So that's why that's where the jelly beans are going to come in. So the jelly beans aren't actually for a pairing or a tasting element. They're just a little experiment that I like to do with folks to show them how taste actually works. So the biggest misconception that people have is that taste is done in your mouth by your taste buds. And that is not actually true. Well, not entirely true, anyway. So your taste buds can actually only pick up on areas of flavor, those being sweet, sour, bitter, savory, and salty, or savory or umami, whichever word you like to use. But yeah, those 5 areas: sweet, sour, bitter, savory or umami, and salty. And so your taste buds only pick up on one or those areas of flavor. If you remember when we were in middle school and we all got taught that tongue map where it had, had kind of set places where sweetness is here. Throw that out the window. That is not true at all. Our science has actually advanced a little bit since then, and we understand taste a lot better. And so you have all different types of taste buds pick up on all 5 areas of flavor. Now, the reason that flavor tends to be concentrated on certain parts of the tongue more than other is because the signals that are sent from your tongue to your brain can be slightly stronger for certain types of flavors certain areas of flavor on certain taste buds compared to others. So although all of the taste buds in the front of our tongue can actually taste all 5 areas of taste, they might be able to send a little bit of a stronger signal, or an action potential, as we call it, to your brain for sweetness, say. And then your taste buds that are on your side of your tongue can be a little bit stronger in sending signals to our brain for bitterness. So it's really not anything that people of my generation learn in middle school. But there are areas of the tongue that are more apt towards certain flavors. That's why you'll tend to feel certain flavors gravitate towards certain areas of the tongue and the mouth. So that's really important to understand. The actual specifics of taste are not done in your mouth at all. They're actually done in your nasal cavity. And so at the top of our nasal cavity, we have a gland. It's called the olfactory bulb. And that is the gland that is responsible for the actual specifics of taste. And the way it works is that all of the molecules that everything is made up of that we eat and drink, once those molecules become volatile, they are able to travel either up your nose or through your hard palate, and then they are able to connect with your olfactory bulb. And so the structure of the olfactory bulb is that it has millions and millions of receptors on it. And each of those receptors is responsible for one specific molecule. So for example, if you have a molecule that is, let's say that we convert as the flavor of coffee, that molecule of coffee, when it floats up your nose or through your hard palate, it connects with that receptor on your olfactory bulb that is responsible for the flavor or connecting with that molecule. Once it does, that coffee flavored molecule connects with that receptor. It then sends a signal or an action potential to your brain that is then converted into a flavor and sometimes also an emotion. The emotion part of it is actually very fun in some elements, and I know that we've all experienced it. And so the best way I can describe it in terms of tasting spirits is if you've ever had a really bad experience with any particular spirit in your life, and I know a lot of people have done it in college with Jose Cuervo.
I was just going to say tequila always gets the bad rap. Always.
And then for the rest of your life, you cannot even smell Jose Cuervo. Sorry to pick on you, Jose. You cannot even smell Jose Cuervo without having that emotional attachment of, oh, I cannot do this. Oh, this makes me want to throw up. It takes you right back to that emotional moment when you had a bad experience. And that's because your olfactory signals can also trigger emotions.
Or Boone's Farm.
Oh, Boone's Farm for sailing. Yes, that's right. For me, I don't have any of those. I love all distilled spirits for some kind of reason, right? So that is the science of taste. And so what you need to take from that is what is even more important than putting the liquid to the lips. What is even more important in the tasting process is having all those molecules that are in that glass connect with your olfactory bulb. Because when they do, that's when they're converted into a specific flavor. It's not done in your mouth. It's done in your olfactory bulb. So this is what my jelly bean experiment is for. So if everyone is ready,
Oh boy.
I will. So I'm gonna actually talk through how this experiment works. It's very quick, and then after I talk through it, we'll all do it together.
Okay.
So what we are going to do, this is an experiment to prove the process of the taste buds and the olfactory bulb and how they work separately but in sync. And so what we're going to do is we're going to block off access to our olfactory bulb, and it's very simple. We're just going to pinch our nose. That way, none of those molecules that are volatile can float up into our nose, connect to our olfactory bulb. We stop that process. And when we do that and we start chewing a jelly bean, all that we're going to be able to taste is the general area of sweetness, because that's all our taste buds can do. They can taste areas of sweet, sour, bitter, savory. And midway through chewing our jelly, we're going to, very simple, we're just going to take our fingers off of our nose, and all of a sudden we'll be able to taste the actual specific taste of the jelly bean, because all of those molecules are then able to connect with our olfactory bulb.
Oh yeah.
So are you all ready to try it?
Just did.
You have to chew with your mouth open, which is really rude.
So if everyone's ready to try it, go ahead and close off access to your olfactory bulb, which is very simple. Go ahead and pinch your nose. Now, none of these molecules can connect with your olfactory when you're chewing. So go ahead and pop a jelly bean in with your nose closed, and all you'll be getting is the general area of sweetness right now. Then midway through chewing your jelly bean, go ahead and allow access to your olfactory bulb. All of a sudden, all those molecules can float up, connect with your olfactory bulb, and send a signal to your brain to pick up that specific area of taste.
That's amazing.
Did everyone get it?
I think I just ate a buttered popcorn jelly bean. It's very confusing.
That's amazing. I've never done
it was like
before.
funky butter. Yeah, it was totally worked.
It totally works.
Yeah,
and it doesn't work with all food and drink. I picked jelly beans specifically because they work the best, because they are just one specific area of taste. They are pure sweetness. And then they are one very, very specific area of flavor, because jelly beans generally are very concentrated in what specific flavor they are. So it works best with jelly beans, but it's just a little experiment to understand how the taste process works and how olfactory works. So the number one most important thing when you're tasting whiskey is actually not putting the liquid to lips. The number one most important thing to do is to smell, to allow all of these molecules in this glass of whiskey to be able to connect with your olfactory bulb and have a signal sent to your brain that can be converted into a flavor. What is quite amazing about a glass of whiskey is that you can actually have up to about 350 different types of molecules in a glass of whiskey. Now, what that says to me is that is 350 different potential flavors. Now, all of those molecules in the glass, they're all going to be at a different proportion and a different rate. So some molecules will be, be very common in a glass of whiskey, and some will be very uncommon and very, very difficult to detect. So when we talk about tasting notes, we're talking about what molecules in this glass were able to connect with your personal olfactory bulb and be converted into a flavor. And it is absolutely different for every single person on the planet. Yep. So one thing to understand about the olfactory too is that gland is ever changing. Remember I said it had tens of millions of receptors on it. Each receptor responsible for a different specific molecule. And if those receptors that are specific to one type of molecule are not being used, the brain and the body has the ability to kill those receptors off and replace them with ones that it thinks that it does need more of. So if you are somebody who drinks or eats a lot of one specific type or of taste of molecule, your body and your olfactory bulb will kill off molecules that kill off receptors that aren't being used very much, replace them with receptors that it thinks it needs more of. And the best example I can give of that, or the easiest one to understand, is a coffee drinker versus a non-coffee drinker.
Mm.
If you are a coffee drinker and you drink coffee every morning religiously, then your olfactory bulb will understand that, and it will say, hey, we're drinking a lot of coffee. There's a lot of these coffee molecules coming our way. So maybe we should get rid of these receptors that are really being used because we see a lot of those molecules coming through. And so then if you are a coffee drinker and you drink whiskey, you are more apt to be able to pick up coffee notes in the whiskey because you have more receptors that are responsible for that molecule. And so every single person's olfactory bulb is completely unique as their fingerprint. And so every single person is going to have a slightly different experience when they're tasting whiskey, which is why it's very difficult to tell somebody when you're doing a whiskey tasting what they should be tasting. It's very unique to every single person. Now, there are certain types of molecules in a glass of whiskey that are more common, and no matter how many olfactory receptors you have, you are going to pick up on certain flavors because those molecules are so common in a glass of whiskey. Number one being ethanol or alcohol. Everyone can pick up on that because it's so common in a glass of whiskey. Another one being vanillin or vanilla and caramel and wood char. These are very common molecules in a glass of whiskey. And tannins, these are very common too. So all of these very, very common molecules in a glass of whiskey, generally you'll see those pop up a lot on tasting notes because they are so common in the glass that no matter what the makeup of anyone's olfactory bulb is, usually you can pick up on those particular type of notes. So did that make sense, everyone?
Oh, yes. Love it.
Okay, cool. So now we understand how the taste process works.
Yes.
Now we need to know how to apply that to tasting whiskey. So the number one most important thing that we talked about is smelling. And so the most important thing when you're tasting a glass of whiskey is to actually smell. So when you see those folks out of the whiskey bars and they're sitting there and they're sniffing and you've thought, what the heck are they doing over there? Why are they sniffing it? Now you know. And you don't need to be goofy or silly about it, but if you really want to enjoy your whiskey experience, the number one most important thing is definitely the smelling process. So that is actually the first thing we do when we taste whiskey is we like to smell it. And so what you want to do is you want to take your glass and you want to bring it up to a distance from your nose where you can sense or smell that a lot of these volatile molecules are able to connect with your olfactory bulb. So you don't want it too close where when you breathe in, you're getting too much alcohol and it's kind of scorching your palate. That's what you want to avoid at this point. So you want to bring it up to a comfortable distance where you're not scorching your palate, but you can feel that you're getting a lot of those volatile molecules connecting with your olfactory bulb. And you want to breathe in through your nose, out through your mouth. There's really no limit on how many times you want to breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth at this point, because, like I said, up to 350 different molecules in a glass of whiskey, up to 350 potential different flavors. So every time you breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth, all you're doing is allowing more of those molecules to connect with your olfactory bulb and having the potential of picking up on more flavors that are inside the whiskey. When you bring the glass to your nose, a really good tip is that you want to find your dominant nostril whenever you start tasting whiskey. And not a lot of people know this, but your nostrils will actually always be dominant and recessive, and they switch about every 4 hours. So you probably noticed it if you ever have a cold or you're ever feeling under the weather. You'll notice that one side of your nose feels really blocked and the other side is clear.
Yeah.
And a few hours later, miraculously, the other side is blocked and the other side is clear. And you're like, how did that happen? Why is it switching sides? And that's because your nose has a natural process where the capillaries will expand and dilate, and they'll switch about every 4 hours. So one side will be dominant for about 4 hours, and then it will switch. The capillaries will switch. They'll expand and dilate on the opposite side, allowing the other side of your nose to become dominant, and it will switch about every 4 hours. So the first time you pick your glass up, you want to find your dominant side. So for me, it's definitely my right side right now.
Me too. My right side right now.
Definitely my right side right now. And so once you know,
oh, so allergies are so bad. This is helping though, actually.
Season, I know.
Yeah, it's helping open everything up. This is what I put in my humidifier at night. I'm kidding. Or am I?
So the first step in the tasting process is, number one, find your dominant side of your nostril, which for me is my right side right now. Hold the glass at a comfortable distance where you know you're not scorching your palate, but you're feeling a lot of those volatile molecules being able to go up to your nose, connect with the olfactory bulb. Breathe in through your nose, out through your mouth. You can never do it too many times, because every time you do it, you're just allowing more of these different types of molecules to connect with the olfactory bulb and potentially be turned into a flavor. Now,
make sure you smile, right? I always encourage people to smile.
We're drinking whiskey.
We're drinking whiskey. It smells delicious. It helps you do that breathe out of your mouth. You remember to breathe out and not breathe in through your mouth. So I always tell people, and you look good in pictures. So
right.
Exactly.
For the gram.
Right. Yeah, for the gram. And people love taking pictures when they're drinking whiskey too. So it's a thing. Okay, so the next step is, and if it's okay with you guys, I'll talk through these next couple steps before we actually do them, just so you can understand the process. The next step is we are going to take some of the whiskey into our mouth. When we take the whiskey into our mouth, we want to move it all around our mouth and let it hit every type of taste bud that we have in our mouth. So, we have those taste buds that are a little more apt towards sweetness, a little more apt towards savory, umami, salty. We want to move it around and make sure it hits, the whiskey connects with every taste bud we have in our mouth. They're not just on our tongue. We have them on the inside of our cheeks, our hard palate, our soft palate, on our gums. So we want to move the whiskey around our mouth, almost chew on it for 8, 10, 12, 15 seconds. However long it takes for you to feel 100% confident that you have moved the whiskey around enough to where it has connected with every single taste bud in your mouth: sweet, sour, bitter, salty, savory. Once you are confident that the whiskey is connected with all of the taste buds in your mouth, tongues, gum, inside of your cheeks, hard palate, soft palate, then we want to swallow. After you swallow the whiskey, the next step is the very most important step. After you swallow the whiskey, I want everybody to consciously think about breathing out after you swallow. It's very, very important. And here's the reason why, is that this alcohol that's in the glass, the actual alcohol molecules or the ethanol molecules, they are very volatile at room temperature. So after we drink the whiskey and it goes down into our belly, those alcohol vapors, or the ethanol, is giving off a vapor because it's volatile, that then floats into our chest and causes our chest to burn.
Feels so good.
Some people like that, but a lot of folks do not. So we want to try and avoid that burn in our chest, because for a lot of people, it really it takes away from the tasting experience. But what it does that it does for everybody is, naturally, when your brain detects that burn in your chest, it naturally diverts away from all of the olfactory processing. And so if we can 100% keep our brain on processing all of the signals and flavors that are being sent from our olfactory bulb, and not have our brain distracted at all by that burn in our chest, that gives us the maximum chance of picking up the most amount of flavors out of that whiskey. And so the way to avoid that burn in your chest is to breathe out all of that vapor given off by the volatile ethanol. So that's very, very important when you're tasting whiskey. And then the last step in the tasting process is the finish. And the finish really is just kind of an industry term we use for where is my mouth tingling. So when we say a whiskey has, let's say, a forward palate finish, for example, that just means that that tingle you're experiencing after you've drank the whiskey is moving forward on your tongue. Or if we say a whiskey has a really long finish, it means that tingle is sticking around for a really long time. And the opposite of that, if a whiskey has a short finish, it means that tingle goes away relatively quickly. And so those are I'll go through the steps one more time, just so we know. And then let's all taste some whiskey together. So step number 1, bring the glass up to your dominant nostril. Breathe in through your nose, out through your mouth. Let all of those beautiful molecules in that glass of whiskey connect with your olfactory. Then we're going to take some whiskey in, move it around our mouth, let it hit every taste bud we have in our mouth, on our tongue, inside of our cheeks, our gums, our hard palate, our soft palate, the sweet, the sour, the bitter, the savory, salty. When you're confident after chewing on that whiskey for 8, 10, 12, 15 seconds, after you feel confident you've hit every taste bud, swallow the whiskey down, breathe out all that alcohol vapor, avoid that burn in your chest, let our brain focus on the flavors, and then think about the finish. Where is our mouth tingling? Where is the tingle moving? And how long is that tingle lasting? So, Saya, Chastity, Whiskey Family, are you ready to taste some whiskey with me?
Oh, yeah.
We've already been tasting.
I
we
know
don't
you have.
we don't pay attention to directions.
I saw you back there.
We're both
I
rule
am ready
breakers.
I was thirsty.
I'm a little parched, so I'm ready to taste some whiskey. So I'm going to take my Glencairn glass.
Go for it.
Here we go. I'm going to bring it up to my dominant nostril. It's on my right side right now. In through my nose, out through my mouth.
Yum.
Like I said, you can never do it too many times, just allowing more of those molecules to connect to my olfactory. Go ahead and take some of the whiskey in.
We need to do a little Tennessee smack too. That's my favorite after I take some sips.
Mm-hmm.
You said a Tennessee smack?
That's how, yeah, because I changed it from Kentucky smack to Tennessee smack. Yeah, that's it right there.
Okay. And now I'm thinking about my finish here
Mm-hmm.
and where it's moving. So for me, the finish is definitely moving forward.
Yes, on the tip of my tongue.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and now I'm getting a tiny bit now. Very late on, I'm getting a tiny bit is now moving towards the sides.
Yes. Mm-hmm. I get that too.
Yeah.
Yep. And then after about 15 seconds, then it really starts to dissipate. So actually a pretty decently long finish on that 1884 for it being 93 proof. And that finish is very much dictated by the amount of alcohol in the whiskey. And so you'll notice as we go through these whiskeys, that the finish will be more intense and last longer. So just going back to what we have, these cups I have up front here. The jelly beans, we've done those. We all understand olfactory. These other 2 cups I have here, I have some crackers. These are for a palate cleanser. Now, if you want to have your palate completely start from scratch in between tasting each whiskey, you can go ahead and eat a little cracker, and that will absorb all of the alcohol and the residuals left from the whiskey in your mouth. And so it will, for the most part, give you a fresh palate each time. And then you can absolutely drink some water.
Or
Obviously,
if you hadn't had dinner yet, you can snack. it's the quarantine diet: saltine crackers and whiskey.
There you go, and jelly beans.
Jelly beans sounds good to me.
And of course, at Uncle Nearest, we always promote drinking honorably, and so I hope everyone has a glass of water on hand as well.
Oh yeah.
So you can also have a little sip of water in between your whiskeys. So let's go ahead and talk through the 3 whiskeys that we're tasting today.
Yeah.
Yes.
How about that? Yeah. So the first one that we're tasting is the Uncle Nearest 1884. This is a product that we brought to the shelves back in July of last year We released it at the Tales of the Cocktail event in New Orleans. And this is not our flagship item, but this is one of the most proud items that we have in our lineup. Just aside from the whiskey, what makes this bottle so special and so almost even modern day iconic is the story behind what it means. And if anyone doesn't know, our master blender, her name is Victoria Edie Butler. She is personally responsible for every drop of whiskey that goes into this bottle of Uncle Nearest 1884. And what makes it so special is that Victoria is not only a master blender, she is also Nearest Green's great-great-granddaughter. She is 5th generation Green family. So just to have her carrying on her great-great-grandfather's legacy, and just like he was the first recorded African-American distiller in United States history, Victoria is one of the first African-American master blenders in United States history as well. So she's upholding her great-great-grandfather's legacy incredibly well. And I gotta say, Victoria is quite a natural talent. Does she not have
Yes,
whiskey
she
in her
is.
blood?
Oh yeah, she
Yes,
definitely has whiskey
yeah.
in her blood.
I talked to her
Incredible.
today. She's so excited to get back in the
Oh,
market. Yeah.
she's incredible. I love her so much. And so every single bottle of 1884, hold up to the camera here if you can see, is actually has Victoria's signature on the back.
Yeah.
And I can 100% let everyone know that every single drop of whiskey that goes into these bottles that you find on the shelf has been tasted and approved by Victoria. There's not one single barrel of Tennessee whiskey that goes into these bottles that Victoria hasn't sampled and decided that it is good enough to uphold her family's legacy. So this is a very, very special bottle to us. And so the barrels that we start with, because there's a long process that happens before Victoria blends those barrels into the batches. And so it starts with, just like all of our whiskeys, it starts with a beautiful recipe of 84% corn, 8% rye, and 8% malted barley. And so anyone who's kind of familiar with the whiskey industry and the bourbon industry, maybe, you might think 84% corn, that's kind of high. Well, having a high corn content is actually very traditional for Tennessee whiskey. Most Tennessee whiskeys will have a lot of corn in their recipe. And so after the grains are milled and cooked and fermented, then we start to see the production of alcohol by adding yeast into those cooked grains. And then so after those grains will ferment for 3 days, we see that it's actually a beer at that point. And so we'll see that beer will sit between 11 and 14% alcohol after about 3 days. Then once that fermentation is complete, then the distiller's beer will then get distilled. And so what that basically means is we add a bunch of heat to the bottom of what's called a column still. And that heat has the ability to separate the alcohols from the byproducts that are in the fermentation, the byproducts being the parts that we don't want in the finished whiskey. And so we do that twice. The first time we do it, our whiskey comes off of the still at 130 proof. And then we do it again and it refines it a little more, it dials it down. It actually removes some more of those byproducts that we don't want in the final whiskey. And so then our whiskey goes up to 150 proof to come off the still. Once it comes off the still, then we do the most prestigious part of our production process, the Lincoln County process. And that's what makes Tennessee whiskey. And that is what made Nearest and Jack not just famous for their whiskey, but just what made people come from counties and counties around to Lynchburg, Tennessee. What made people come from as far away as Alabama and the Carolinas to that little town of Lynchburg, Tennessee to buy their whiskey back in the late 1800s was because of that Lincoln County process. It made their whiskey so much more refined, so much softer, so much more delicate and tastier. And so that's what really made their whiskey so incredibly famous in the late 1800s. And so the way that process works is that we take that distilled whiskey and we run it through a tub of charcoal made from sugar maple trees. And that charcoal has the ability to remove some of the other byproducts that the distillation process doesn't have the ability to do. And so those byproducts being some of the residual fusel oils, amino and fatty acids are the big ones. And so once those are removed, then we are able to put the whiskey into the barrel. So for 1884, we let that beautiful whiskey sit in the barrel for at least 7 years, up to 8 years. And then once it's hit between 7 and 8 years, that's when Victoria comes in. And her job is very underrated, and actually one of the most difficult jobs in the whiskey industry is the blending portion. And so you have to have one of the most incredible palates to be able to pick this barrel and pick this barrel and say not this barrel, and pick out the very best of the best barrels of whiskey that you want to be blended together to go into your finished product. Now, Sailor, we were talking earlier about why women are so much better at picking barrels and blending than men. And it's evolutionary. It's evolutionary. Do you want to talk about that?
Sure. So many studies have been done recently on women and whiskey in specific, but studies have been done over the years on women's sense of smell and sense of taste. And I'm sure most of the husbands out there know that, like I said earlier, I can smell if someone was standing next to someone that had a cigarette, or, oh, you ate onions last night, and, and I can also you open the milk carton, smell this. Does this smell bad? So women have more olfactory nerves. And so as you were talking about that olfactory bulb, so we get more information pumped into that bulb and where it comes from. I always think it's funny to talk about, we had to smell the offspring, to smell the children, the baby, to know if they were sickly or healthy. I mean, that's literally, and also smelling danger and being able to taste something first, then you could give it to the offspring. We're going way back to caveman days. So
Right.
on our very dear friend, Peggy No Stevens, who is a master taster, her organization, Bourbon Women, have done studies, blind tastes with women. And every time women will choose a higher proof spirit, not knowing anything about, what's in the glass and what proof it is, how old it is. They will choose the higher proof every time. Obviously, you get more flavor in that. So, women make excellent master blenders. We make excellent master tasters. We have excellent noses. So, our place in the whiskey business, you guys have needed us for a long time. So I'm glad we're here.
Right. I'll wait.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And it's pretty significant difference. I don't know the exact number, but I think it's 6 or 8 or 9 percent more olfactory receptors in women than men. So it's quite significant. It's biologically proven that women are better tasters, are better master blenders than men are. It's just science, y'all. We can't help it. It's just science.
So watch out, fellas. We're here to stay. But you'll be thanking us for our delicious whiskey. Victoria's proving that.
That's right.
You know what I've always wondered is the reason that the police and law enforcement use dogs to sniff things out is because dogs have almost over 100 times more olfactory receptors than humans do. And so what I'm thinking right now is there a way that we can train a dog to pick the perfect barrels of whiskey? Is that ever possible?
Wow.
I mean,
I
I think
don't
you
see why
have to
not.
separate the barrels probably and say, okay, go, buddy, go sniff out the best barrel for
Oh
mom.
my God.
Let's try
Wouldn't
it
that be
out.
amazing? Have a distillery dog that could
Oh
pick.
my God.
Yes, it would be so cool. Yeah.
That would be so cute. Yes, but yeah, it's just science. Women are better tasters. They're better blenders. Their olfactories are more refined, and so that's just how it is. So women, you should be able to in theory be able to pick up on different molecules, different flavors a little bit easier, and maybe get a little more in depth with your tasting process. So whereas I might not be able to pick up on molecules in that glass that have a very low percentage, you guys might be able to pick those up, whereas I might potentially I wouldn't be able to. But I like to think I have a good olfactory too. So,
but also takes practice. So I don't know about you guys, but I get asked, and in the quarantine, it's been interesting because people ask me all the time if they say, well, what do you get out of this? And I mean, you have your basic notes of whiskey. You can say, like you said earlier, wood, vanilla. There's just basic things you're going to get in most whiskeys. But then if you've been doing this for long enough, and I'm certainly not a master taster, but you can pick out things like custards and, crazy stuff. You think about wine, for example, there are people in the world who can actually say this wine came from this year and this region.
Right, because of their palates. But we can all train our palates too.
And exactly.
Absolutely.
So if you train yourself and do it long enough, you can learn to pick out certain things. And so I haven't done it in a while. I need to do it. I will blind test myself. And you can start by, if you have several different types of whiskey on your shelf, like, is this a Scotch? Is this an Irish whiskey? Is this a bourbon? Start off there. And then after a while, you will start to be able to identify what you're drinking. And that's when it really gets fun.
Yeah,
absolutely. Do you remember earlier I was saying the olfactory has the ability to kill off receptors that aren't being used, replace them with ones that are being used very frequently. So if you drink whiskey a lot, aka practice, your olfactory will start replacing receptors that aren't being used very much with receptors that are being used by tasting whiskey. So yes, practice does make not perfect, but better.
better.
Makes better.
I mean, I'm working hard here, you guys.
Yes, we all work hard on whiskey tasting things.
This is research and
absolutely. Okay. So the last little cup that I had up front here was my water. I have distilled water, which is obviously pure. But it's not incredibly bad to use regular water, but the distilled water is obviously pure, so it doesn't adulterate the flavor at all, other than adding the H2O. And so the reason that we like to add a little bit of water is because it will potentially allow your olfactory to pick up on more notes, on different notes that are in the whiskey. And so at room temperature, the alcohol or ethanol that is in the glass is very volatile. Alcohol evaporates at quite a low temperature. And so at room temperature in this glass, a lot of what you're going to get coming off and being volatile from the liquid is going to be the ethanol. And so when you add water to that, it essentially changes the chemical makeup of what is inside that glass. And so it changes the volatility of all the different molecules that are in there. So whereas all the different molecules will be floating off at one particular rate before, when you add water, it's going to change the rate of when those molecules are then being volatile and connecting to your olfactory bulb. So essentially, it will slow down the volatility of the alcohol and allow the volatility of the other molecules that are in glass to come through. And as you do that, that only enhances your chances that different types of molecules that are not alcohol will be able to connect with the olfactory bulb. Now, my buddy.
Hey, Richie, can I I was just gonna say, can I
Yeah,
talk
jump in.
before? I know what you're gonna say next, but before that, so the other cool thing, one of these little like fun Fred and I the Science Guy facts about whiskey is
Yeah.
so the little and the easiest way to do this without nerding out too hard is let's just say the yummy flavors are little tiny oil beads inside the whiskey, and when you add the water to them, they're hydrophobic. So they get scared of the water, they run to the top, they hit the air, and they pop open. And so that gives you, that's also why you do the smack at the end after sipping whiskey is those little oil beads are left on your lips. And if you smack them, it'll break them open and you're getting all this flavor and aroma. So in any whiskey, I always, when I'm tasting a new whiskey, like to add a couple drops of water so I can get all those beads to come to the top and just open up all that beautiful flavor.
Yeah, I love
Yes,
adding
absolutely. So the so my buddy Richard Patterson at Dalmore, if anyone knows who he is the craziest, kookiest man in the whiskey industry, but I love him.
He throws his whiskey. Throws it.
If anyone out there hasn't seen Richard do a tasting, it's worth YouTubing. He's a very silly man.
He puts the whiskey in his glass and he rolls it around, right? Okay. And then he'll just fling it out of the glass. I'm not kidding. Wherever he's talked about, like he's flung it on photographers' equipment and had to pay for it. So he does
very silly.
It's brilliant. I mean, he doesn't have to do it like that, but why he does it is so he wants to make sure there's no detergents left or anything because you just
it's like a rinse.
So he's kind of doing a rinse to make sure the only thing that's coated that glass is the whiskey that he's about to smell and taste. Right, but of course, now it's his thing. And he'll just do it on carpets of hotels. Yeah.
To be honest, I've done that before too. I've done it with wine. So
I meant to do that for science.
Yep, and okay, so Richard Patterson, he swears. I actually haven't seen any science behind this, but you know what? He's a very trustworthy person in the industry, so I'll go ahead and let everyone know what he says. And so he swears that if you look at the volatility of molecules, if it's on a chart and they're like this, up and down and up and down, he says that the most even volatility you can get across all potential molecules in a glass of whiskey is at 21% ABV or 42 proof. And so that's quite a significant amount of added water. Mm-hmm. And so don't be scared to add water to your whiskey. It's absolutely fine. Yes. All you're doing, it's not frowned upon. It's not considered bad. All you're doing is altering the chemical structure in your glass and allowing different volatility to be able to taste different molecules.
And we're talking about
you're just allowing yourself.
Yeah, just
that's an important because people will ask, and I'm like, well, don't do it when someone's given you like half a glass. Do it, pour a little amount, add a little water to it, and then you actually find your right place, and that's really fun for people to like. Oh, I like 6 drops, or I like a couple tablespoons, or whatever.
Exactly, yeah. So that's what my water is for here. So if you add a couple drops here, you're bringing the proof down, you're changing the chemical structure, you're going to get a different experience.
Yes, for sure.
Especially that 18.
So let's go on and try some 1856 real quick.
Oh yeah.
So Chastity, do you want to talk us through the 1856, our flagship?
Ooh, yes. So my personal favorite, 1856 is our first expression that we launched in June of 2017, right? It's aged for 9 years. It's 100 proof. This is a great sipping whiskey, but also great in cocktails because of that high proof. It's going to really stand up to those additional ingredients that you add into to this cocktail or whatever you're using it with. So me personally, this is my favorite expression. It's rich. It's has full of body. It's just so delicious.
Oh, I know.
I love all
right?
the toasted brown sugar,
yes.
toasted oak that you get. That's peanut brittle and just all of the yummy, right? All the yummy whiskey stuff is right in the middle of this.
Yeah. Guy. And you know what? 1856 is also great for cooking. If anyone likes to experiment with cooking, I made a great whiskey cake with 1856 over the holidays. And
when I said replace all the water with whiskey.
Yes, you right. Well, I don't- it'll be a pretty boozy cake.
That's an expensive cake.
But yeah, so when you taste 1856, you're gonna get a lot of coconut and vanilla and caramel and toffee and baking spices. You're gonna get some nutmeg. So this is a really beautiful expression. And again, you just can't go wrong with any of our spirits, but this is my personal favorite.
So much flavor in this.
Yeah.
I mean, so you
Oh
see
my God.
people's faces.
The
I
bomb.
love when you're tasting someone that's very knowledgeable about whiskey and you give this to them for the first time, like when we go out to bars and restaurants and
Yeah.
their face immediately when they taste it, like, yeah, all that flavor in there. Isn't that delicious?
Yeah, but it's,
Oh.
but then you also get earthy notes and some grassy notes and even like some apple and some cherry. It's just, the more I drink this, the more I taste all the time.
Like I get like wet earth and like if you're walking through the woods in the fall, not to get all, I don't know how to explain. I don't have a better descriptive word for that.
No, that's perfect, Sailor. That's your brain converting those molecules into an emotion as well, and so you're able to describe that through the emotion of walking through the woods, and connecting those senses with that. That's perfect.
And also the proof on this too. And for me, this is very indicative of that Lincoln County process. I don't know how you guys feel about this, but for me, every time I drink a whiskey that has had the Lincoln County process, that at a higher proof, it is, and smooth is such a blanket term, and I realize that, but it is so, you have so much less of the bite and the uncomfortable heat, because there's the good heat, there's the uncomfortable heat. Like a young whiskey has that uncomfortable, if it's too young, take it out before it's time. But there's something about that beautiful process with the charcoal that really, really changes that heat factor into something really pleasant. And then again, our additional filtration step just makes really one of the most silky in that mouthfeel. We all are crazy about mouthfeel. I like the oil. Yeah. Just so, but doesn't touch the flavor. So you take out all the things that make it uncomfortably bitey, and you just get the warmth, and that flavor is left alone, which is so beautiful.
Yeah, it really is. It's so sweet on the nose for me. When I nose this, it's all sweet tones for me. It's really, really, really deep caramel, but I get wood. I get the barrel on the nose, but it's not a wood barrel. It's a caramelized wood sugar.
Yeah, like a toasted. If someone if you took a piece of toast with some honey and brown sugar and toasted it on a piece of wood.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, it really is.
Like a wood plank in a fire or something.
What I love about our whiskey is that the last thing that leaves me is, I love sweetness. I've got a sweet tooth, but in my whiskey, I really like a full rounded experience. And so the last thing that leaves me right at the end of the finish, as I'm hitting about 8-10 seconds into the finish, all the way through to it, this one for me lasts almost up to 20 seconds. As I'm going from about 10 seconds to 20 seconds, it starts moving into a little bit of a bitter tone on the back end. And I love that. It just gives it the full rounded experience. I start with sweetness on the nose.
That spice on the finish.
And I end with a nice
I get all that banana and lemon custard punch, right? And then boom, it goes into the spiciness at the end. So delicious.
Yeah, it's really good.
Yes.
Dangerous.
So you want to try the 1820? Are we ready for it?
Yes. Isn't it funny how you can go back to your own whiskey that you deal with all the time? And I've been drinking more whiskey during quarantine that isn't ours, because we've been inviting so many whiskey friends on the show. Yeah. And so to come back to it like this is such a great exercise, because you're like, my whiskey's good.
It is.
So my 1820 that I have, you guys, this is actually, is it too dark to see? This is actually a barrel pick that I did with two of my favorite accounts in Eastern Washington. So shout out to Northern Quest Casino and the Davenport Hotel. We picked this together, this barrel, and boy, was that fun. Oh, man. Delicious. And I have bottle number 29 out of it. So,
yeah, mine is sitting at 110.1. This was our 12th single barrel that we did. And I have bottle number 44 here. 44 of 169. 169 is actually quite a lot of bottles to get out of a barrel of 1820.
mm-hmm.
We've seen them as low as we've had one barrel that only yielded 75 bottles. So they can be quite low. 169 is fairly high. And that's because of that evaporation rate. Because these bottles at 1820 are sitting in our warehouse for up to 15 years. And what happens during that process of sitting in the warehouse is that the whiskey is sitting inside a barrel, and that barrel is porous. And so the whiskey soaks into the barrel, and then molecules that soak into the barrel and soak all the way through the barrel and to the other side and evaporate off. They're lost and gone forever. We call those that the angel's share, because that whiskey is soaked through the barrel, evaporated off, and gone up to the angels for them to drink. And then all of that whiskey that is soaks into the wood of the barrel, but doesn't get the opportunity to escape, to either go all the way through the barrel and evaporate off, or escape back inside the barrel and hang out with its other whiskey buddies. All of that whiskey that gets stuck inside the barrel, we call that the devil's cut, because it's stuck inside that wood and we can never get it back. It's like the devil stole it from us. So we call that the devil's cup. And so a lot of the whiskey that you then put in the barrel, because of the barrel being porous, we lose a lot of that whiskey either to the devil's cut or the angel's share. And so after aging 1820 barrels for between 11 and 15 years, you start off with 53 gallons of whiskey in a cider barrel, and after 11 to 15 years, you could.
Uh-oh. He's frozen.
Oh, he is.
It's a cliffhanger. There you are. Did your ear pods die again?
Sorry, my internet cut out for a second there.
So after 11 to 15 years, you could be looking at as low as getting, really 50 liters out of a barrel. I mean, it can be as low as that. Generally with the evaporation, the first year of aging, you're going to lose 12 to 15% to evaporation, to the devil's cut and the angel's share. Then your second year, you're going to lose, 8 to 10%, then 6 to 7%, and then about 4%. So after you hit your fourth year, you're losing about 4% annually compounding. And so after 11 to 15 years, man, you can be left with not very much whiskey in that barrel, which makes the whiskey even more scarce and even more hard to get, because there's just not much of it left. And so these 1820 barrels, we age them at least 11 years. And then what we do with the process is, after 11 years, we take those barrels and we test the proof on them. And if the barrel is at least 108 proof after 11 years or more, then we pull it aside as potentially becoming 1820. Then we go through a tasting process. And so all of our people who are involved in the tasting process, myself and Sherry Moore, our Director of Distillery Operations, our Master Blender, Victoria Edie Butler, fifth generation Green family, great-great-granddaughter of Nearest Green, and Fawn Weaver, the owner, founder of Uncle Nearest. We taste the whiskey, and if it's unanimously decided this is just amazing whiskey, and when I say that, I mean world class. We all have to agree that it is world class whiskey, the absolute, some of the best barrels of whiskey on the face of the planet.
Yes.
If we all think it is, then will get bottled as Uncle Nearest 1820, and that doesn't happen very often.
It does not.
All of our barrels of whiskey are incredible. We do not put any barrel of whiskey or any whiskey out of a barrel into a bottle if it is not absolutely incredible. But the barrels that go to being this 1820 are, without doubt, some of the best barrels of whiskey on the face of the planet. And that's really not just me saying that. If you look at the awards that this whiskey wins,
Right.
The entire whiskey industry agrees that we truly have some of the very, very best barrels of whiskey on the planet right now. So we're very, very proud of this product, but that's what makes it so hard to come by, is it because it's just so strict on how we pick those barrels. So it just makes it kind of a very sought after whiskey right now. I get a lot of text messages about this whiskey.
Oh boy.
All the time. So people, listen up, okay? It's a single barrel. That means one barrel. It doesn't mean a small batch. People get that confused sometimes. It's literal single barrel, one barrel. And just like Richie said, you may get very few cases out of that barrel, right? And we have distribution not only in every state in the US, but around the world in some places as well. And so we have to try and share these bottles of 1820, and we all fight over them for our states. So when you can't find the 1820 and come to us, brand ambassadors, asking us why, we are missing it just as much as you are. So when you see them, grab them. Trust me.
Please. Absolutely. Yeah, it's absolutely beautiful whiskey. And so when you taste whiskey that's this high proof, where we're looking at, I'm at 110, then absolutely don't be scared to add some water to it.
Mm-hmm. Uh-oh, he's freezy again.
Yeah.
All the time. Is it bad to add water? It's not bad to add any of those things to your whiskey. But what I always tell people is that the whiskey was put into the bottle the way it was for a reason. Either that master distiller or that master blender worked very hard for a long time to decide how they wanted this whiskey to enter this bottle. So I always say to people, give that master blender, give that master distiller the due diligence of trying that whiskey how they intended it to be tasted, how they thought it tasted.
Oh no,
Richie, you're breaking up real bad for some reason.
And if you don't,
can you hear us?
Oh no,
it's getting worse.
Yeah. And now you're stuck, buddy.
All right. Well, that's okay. We're really close to needing to wrap up anyway. If you're able to hear us, Richie, I think we'll go ahead and wrap up.
Yeah, it's frozen. Look at that face.
Go ahead. I can hear you right now. Okay, so all I was saying there is just pay homage to the master. And so the sip should go in the bottle. And so just as an homage to them, try it that way. If you don't like it that way, then add some ice, add some water, add some Coke, add some ginger ale, add some lemonade, add Red Bull. I don't care.
We always say drink whiskey however you like, right?
That's true.
Drink it how you want to drink it, however you enjoy it. It doesn't matter. Exactly. Whiskey is all about bringing people together, having a good time, enjoying life, loving the people who are around you, and whatever you find the easiest way to do that through whiskey, go ahead and do it. That is absolutely fine. But just at least give it a try the way the master blender or master distiller intended it. And that's it.
Yeah. Great information, Richie.
Yeah, this was so fun, you guys.
Yeah,
I'm
what a
so
good
glad we got to
experience.
I mean, what an opportunity. Again, we are the type of people to try to find the light and the bright wherever we can, even in dark times. And we've been doing that with these shows that we bring you. And look, we got to do a tasting together, which we wouldn't normally get to do. I'm in Washington State, Chastity's in Chicago, Illinois, and Richie's in Louisville, Kentucky. But here we are together with all of these people. I saw some Atlantas and New Yorks and Texas and LA and all over the country. And we got to do this together. So that's a really, really beautiful thing. So we appreciate you all so much for being here tonight. Richie, thank you so much for walking us through this tasting.
Yes.
It was
Of course,
fantastic.
thank you so much. And before too long, me, Chastity, and Seda will be back out there doing tastings. And so just keep your eye out on our social media and see when we're having events, and you can come and actually experience a tasting in person where you can ask all the questions your heart ever desired.
Yes.
We can't wait to see y'all.
Yes.
And just so everybody knows that you're watching, if you visit our website, unclenearest.com/live, that will give you a list of events that we are doing all over social media, sometimes together, sometimes separately. And then eventually what we're doing out in the market. And tomorrow night, we're going to do something very, very special. And I cannot wait for this. Myself and our whiskey brother from Atlanta, Jay Madison, will be with the very amazing Cigar Mike. And he is going to walk us through a cigar pairing with 1884. So I'm posting the link right now. And as soon as we're done with this, it's going to pop up on our Facebook page. I will be broadcasting live from a casino here in Washington State called Northern Quest Casino. They have a beautiful cigar lounge called Legends of Fire. And it's not open yet. They're slowly opening their casino in phases to be safe, but they've allowed me to come in and very safely and at a social distance be able to broadcast inside the lounge, which will be really, really cool.
Yeah, how fun will that be?
Yeah, we're excited for that.
Very cool.
Cool, yeah.
And until everybody's out of lockdown, you can find us here every Wednesday for Whiskey Wednesday. So thanks for watching, everybody. And thank you, Chastity. And thank you, Richie.
Drink honorably, friends.
Drink honorably. Good job.
Yes.
Cheers, everyone.